up all of your hope. We get out of here, you in the shower sing.
This is Dystopia Now, a show where a comedian and an academic explore the philosophies and religions of Silicon Valley and the tech billionaires shaping our country, our world, and our future. I'm Kate Willett, and my co-host is Emil Torres.
That's when it suddenly hit me. Let's let the filthy billionaires all leave for Mars, 'cause we don't want them here. They steal what...
Hello, and welcome back to Dystopia Now. I'm Kate Willett.
I'm Emil Torres.
And we are living in a dystopia now. This is crazy. Not having a good time. What's been on your mind with it?
Dystopia. Economic recession seems, I'm stating the obvious here, seems increasingly likely. Also feeling just like I'm the, my generation, millennials, are just kind of the butt of this like cosmic joke. A lot of us graduate from university right around the Great Recession, 2008 to 2009. And so we had to suffer through that. And now I personally, I'm on the job market right now looking for a position in academia. And the job market is absolutely dire. If I don't get a job this year, I have to wait for another year. And in the meantime, I'll probably experience a global recession. It's just not fair.
I know, it sucks so bad. Comedy certainly doesn't do that great when there's a recession. People aren't usually are not usually like down to spend $20 on a comedy show, even though I always appreciate when people come, which, by the way, please follow me on Instagram, Kate.Willett with 2 L's and 2 T's, and I post my shows there. And if you want to come see me, I'm probably going to be in your city, so I'll remember to say that. But yeah, you know what I was thinking about with the tariffs is like, I was trying to figure out what the fuck Donald Trump is doing. I am not alone. Yeah. And like, okay, there's the explanation that he's giving, which is, to me, feels too stupid to be real. It may well be real because he is very dumb, but I'm also looking for like alternate explanations. So basically what he says is happening is that he wants to like correct the trade deficits. We buy more from a place than they buy from us, which like, yeah, that is going to be the case if you live in the richest country in the entire world. Like, people in the United States and companies are able to buy stuff from places that have labor costs that are far lower and production costs. And, like, we can debate the ethics of that all day, but for the most part, that's something that is beneficial to Americans. And there's also stuff that, like, we absolutely can't produce here. Coffee, that's something I consume every day. That is not possible to grow in the United States.
A trade deficit is not inherently bad. I have a trade deficit with my local corner shop. I go there, I buy products. They never buy anything for me. So there's this asymmetry there, but that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. It's just, there's just a lot of stuff that we can't and don't manufacture in the United States, and would be just like so much more if it were manufactured here. Trust me, I'm not a neolib that's like, oh yay, sweatshops. Like, I'm a pay a little more for stuff and buy used products kind of person. I've got that, so I'm not advocating for like paying low wages to people in other countries. But I will say that, like, with most of the stuff that makes our lives run in the United States, like, people would have a dramatically different standard of living. And for someone like me who's like, yeah, let's, go to thrift shops and stuff, like, except for the like food stuff, okay, maybe that's fine. But like, people in the United States are going to get so mad. It seems like it would be political suicide, except for the fact that his base is like, yeah, well, if I have to choose between tariffs and being able to say the R word, I want to say the R word. And I'm like, you were allowed to say it before. If that's really important to you, it was not illegal under Joe Biden. Like, the people that were mad at you for it before are still mad at you now. Like, nothing has really changed, except for...
I wonder if this is one of the reasons that the Trump administration is interested in annexing Greenland. right? So if the goal is, as Peter Navarro, I think has been the most vehement defender of the tariff policy, if the goal is to bring manufacturing back to the US, and there are resources that we just don't have in the US, that might pose a problem. But Greenland, of course, is rich in like rare earth minerals.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's sort of part of the plan. Okay, yes, we can like block ourselves off from the rest of the world, basically, significantly reduce trade with the rest of the world, but maybe we can get it to work if we, for example, annex Canada or Greenland and so on.
I do think
It's bizarre, though. So yeah, I mentioned Peter Navarro just a moment ago. He's the White House Director of Trade and Manufacturing Policy. Are you familiar with how he was selected for this position? So basically, Jared Kushner went on Amazon and searched books for somebody who was arguing basically what Trump wanted. And then it turned out, this was reported I think for the first time just recently, that Peter Navarro repeatedly cites a guy named Ron Vera in his books. Turns out that Ron Vera, who is supposed to be this expert upon which Peter Navarro is basing some of his arguments, is actually a fictional character made up by Peter Navarro.
Oh
and
my God.
The name is just an anagram of Peter Navarro's last name. And so this is the guy now who is sort of the architect of policies that could very well plunge the world into a global recession. It's like, did you watch Veep?
No, but I know the basic premise. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's at this point in a post-Trump world, or a world that's in the midst of the Trump era, like that show, which depicts the follies and the silliness of American politics, it seems so unrealistic. Like if somebody wrote a script for an episode of Veep that included the Peter Navarro story that I just mentioned, no one would have approved it. They would have said, back years ago, they would have said, this is just, nobody's going to believe it.
Yeah, it's, I definitely think that you're right about the Greenland thing to one extent or another.
Yeah.
All the minerals there, all the oil there. I think that there's a bunch of weird right-wing people that have this idea of opening up the frontier, like moving to a place where they plan to like bring a ton of other white people. But there is one aspect of the Greenland story that is highly relevant to our show. And I don't know if you know about this. Do you know about the potential libertarian utopia in Greenland?
No, I don't. Tell me more.
Okay, so a Peter Thiel backed startup wanted to buy Greenland. So just to kind of contextualize this for a little bit, we've been talking on the show on and around the concept of freedom cities, these cities that Trump wants to build that would be like special economic zones. And, like the libertarian guys, you can reference our episode with Gil Duran if you want a little more background on this. But like since about 2008 or so, Peter Thiel and some of the billionaires associated with him have been really fixated on exiting the United States. And their first idea was to do this on floating platforms in the sea. I checked on the ephemeral page, and I'm actually still on there from that time that I went to that party at the first one in 2008. But we also talked about the concept of Mars colonization, which is a big thing to some of those guys. But over the past few years, they have gotten more on board, from what I can tell. Certainly, actually, I can tell because I fight these people all the time. Like kind of, either taking over existing cities like San Francisco or establishing these new cities that are like, special economic zones where they're just far less regulated. And Peter Thiel's startup called Pronimos, or I guess it's like a venture capital firm. I don't know. It's been around for a while. I don't know if it counts as a startup at this point, how long something can be a startup for. But they have this little colony in Honduras called Prospera, where I think, it's mostly like a place for like Bitcoin crooks to register their business, but it's like Patri Friedman. He's Milton Friedman's grandson, and he's the seasteading guy. And, now he's like one of the main leaders in this Honduras project. And some of these other guys, they're trying to do Praxis, which would be like a cryptocurrency colony in the Mediterranean. But another idea that this same little group has had was reported on in Gizmodo in January 2025. It is a Peter Thiel-backed startup that wants to buy Greenland. It is thrilled that Trump wants to buy Greenland. And I'll just read you a little bit Donald Trump has inspired laughs, cheers, jeers, disbeliefs, and outrage by proposing that the U.S. buy Greenland. Nobody knows what to think of the president-elect's proposal. Trump isn't the only person that wants to buy the Danish territory, however. Those in the techno-bro-verse have expressed, or I guess she says techno-bro-verse, have previously expressed interest in purchasing the landmass and using it for their own dystopian visions. I went to Greenland to try to buy it. Dryden Brown tweeted in November. Brown, 28, is the CEO of a company called Praxis, which is part of a broader movement known as the network state. I'm skipping ahead a little bit. I recently wrote about the network staters who said that they want to create a host of privately funded, crypto-friendly countries all around the world. Zealots of this ideology believe that they're building the future, but critics of the movement see it as little more than a bizarre neo-colonial effort to lay claim to existing countries, rewrite their legal frameworks, and extract wealth and resources from them. Brown actually did travel to Greenland to talk to local officials about buying the territory. He was met with ridicule. Greenlandic independence requires approval from the Danish parliament and a change of our constitution. Politician, I'm going to go with Rasmus Jarlof, recently tweeted, I can guarantee you that there's no way we would approve independence so that you could buy Greenland. And so this goes on a little bit, but a key figure in the success of the network state movement and Donald Trump has been Peter Thiel. Pronomos Capital, the venture capital firm that has been responsible for financing all of the movement's special projects, including Praxis, is financially supported by Thiel. A number of Thiel associates are also entwined with the movement, including Joe Lonsdale. You'll remember Joe from our episode with Jacob Silverman. Joe is the asshole who has billions of dollars and spent his life trying to make cities harsher on homeless people. So Lonsdale's the co-founder of Palantir. Michael Gibson, the former VP of the Thiel Foundation. And at the same time, Thiel has been a notable benefactor to Trump's political career. Even more weirdly, it would appear that Trump has named a Thiel associate, Ken Howery, as ambassador to Denmark, which would put him in a prime position to influence a Greenland deal. I keep almost saying Green New Deal, but I'm like, no, that was back in the day. Definitely not that. Yeah. So okay, just to kind of summarize the rest of this. So, they want to go to Greenland. They want to make like a Prospera-like colony there. In other posts, the same guy that she was talking about said that Greenland would be a good place to practice terraforming that will be useful to them in their Mars colonization. I did some digging into like who exactly has who's giving money to this Praxis project. And it is like I think it's like Andreessen, Srinivasan, or I can't remember who gave money to like which one. Like Prospera, they've all given money to like these different network states. And then there's this guy, Tyler Cohen, who is like this economist at the Mercator Center, who's like BFF with Ezra Klein. There's this whole thing in the U.S. too, like the Freedom Cities. A lot of these guys, like Pronomos is one of the organizations, companies lobbying Trump for them. So they're like really trying to make a lot of little traction with this like libertarian. It just sounds like a fucking horrible place to live. Like it just sounds so shitty. I watched a video of Prospera where Patri Friedman was getting a Tesla key implanted directly into his hand. And I'm like,
awesome.
It sounds like it sucks so bad. I mean, like the way that these men, maybe some women, but the way that they want to live, it's literally like Galt's Gulch in Ayn Rand. It's like, I'm like, they like took that book and they're like, oh, what if we just make a society for the makers and they'll all miss us so much. Everybody's going to realize what they had. No, I'm not going to miss you, you creepy bitch. Like, you think I'm going to miss you, Peter? No, I'm not. I wish that I had helped with the floating platforms more so that you could be living in the middle of the ocean now. But it's just really strange.
I'm reminded of this line, which has sometimes been attributed to George Orwell, which is that it's easy to get a bunch of people to agree on what dystopia would look like. But it's really difficult to get more than just a few people to agree about what utopia would look like. So one person's utopia is another person's dystopia. So I completely agree. I wouldn't want to live in their version of paradise. This idea of buying Greenland also reminds me of the EA/long-termist proposal to buy the island nation of Nauru.
Oh, yeah.
right? Yeah.
No, that's big in this scene. No, when I went to that libertarian party on the open sea, they were all talking to me about buying Nauru, that they would just pay the people for their votes and take it over to do liberty. And these people just keep inventing colonialism from their first principles. It's just really...
Well, some scholars say that eugenics, talk about the eternal return of eugenics, which we've definitely mentioned on this podcast before. You could kind of say the same thing about colonialism. I mean, it is an idea that keeps getting reinvented by people who, excitedly think that they're maybe the first person to to come up with this idea. And the funny thing about the Nauru, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I don't know if I am, but basically, it was Gabe Bankman-Fried, so the brother of Sam Bankman-Fried, who proposed that EAs buy the island, and then build a bunker. In case, as they put it in the memo, 99.99% of humanity dies, the bunker can be stashed with effective altruists and long-termists who can then repopulate the planet. So yeah, it's really... And another thing maybe worth mentioning here is this proposal, you mentioned buying Greenland in relation to the network state. So as I recall, Balaji Srinivasan's opening chapters in his book, The Network State, he talks about various strategies for establishing, a new state, a new sort of libertarian utopia. And you're exactly right. So one is colonizing Mars, right? So let's just go to a different planet, and then we can start a society that isn't burdened or overburdened by all the sort of regulatory restrictions that we have here in the U.S. that prevent, the tech geniuses from innovating. Yeah. But another possibility is, like you said, just to establish, maybe seasteading, or to establish colonies on places like Greenland. But yet another strategy worth recalling here is that maybe you could actually just revamp by destroying and then building up again a nation state like the U.S.
Yeah, and this was kind of the thing that I was going to talk to you about in just a moment, is because, we know all these MFs, Balaji, our little buddy Thiel.
You can curse on this podcast.
Yeah, Andreessen, they at least dabble in right-wing accelerationism and this idea of, destroy the U.S. And I was looking at some of their Twitters last night. Andreessen is just retweeting AI memes of Andrew Huberman. You know who that is?
He's the Stanford.
He's a Stanford professor who,
yeah.
He seems. I've listened to his podcast. I mean, he basically seems like he's like a bro Dr. Phil type, or
it's a guru kind of figure.
Yeah, he's like a guru doctor, and some of the stuff he says is just quite sensible. Like, you know what? There are studies that show that if you get 30 minutes of sunlight per day outside, it's going to make your mood improve. And it's I bet you're right about that, but he also does, I think I listened, there was a good episode about him on Decoding the Gurus, and they kind of talked about how he'll sometimes take these little studies, with a very small sample size that have not been replicated, and start recommending advice based on those. Mm-hmm. So he's a little guru-ish, but ultimately, I don't think he's that bad. These tech bros, though, they love him. They love him. He's like a frequent guest on Rogan's show, and whatever. He's certainly not the most harmful of that world, but I was looking at their Twitter last night, and Andreessen seemed to have nothing to say about it, and Balaji Srinivasan and Curtis Yarvin were tweeting about how the tariffs are actually bad, and I'm like. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, maybe there's no right-wing accelerationism in foxholes, okay? You're like, I don't actually want to lose all my money, please hand it back.
Actually, you mentioned Gil Duran earlier in this episode, somebody we've had as a guest here. And so he published, I think it was just today, a really good Substack piece where he talks about Curtis Yarvin and how Yarvin is now is becoming critical of the tariff policy. And basically, Duran, so I'm simplifying massively. I'd recommend listeners go out and read the Substack piece in full. But he, essentially says that Yarvin is sort of realizing how difficult it is to put into practice high-level theory,
Yeah.
And, ultimately Yarvin, as we've mentioned before, I mean, his theory in the first place, it's just really, really dumb.
Yeah.
He's not a good writer. He's a terrible writer. And his ideas are just absolutely, bizarre and I think, argumentative, like logically flawed in many ways. I mean, some critics have pointed out that there are certain claims he makes that are correct. And there are aspects of his argument that you can sort of follow in a logical manner. And then somewhere towards the end, he takes this bizarre turn, 90-degree turn, and ends up at, we need a dictatorship that is run by a CEO and managed by a board.
I mean, it's interesting because that's more or less the governmental structure of Prospera in Honduras. So basically it's, and I think I have like a okay high level summary of this, but basically it's owned by a company, Prospera Inc. I think Patrick Friedman is involved or like some executive within that company. And if you own property in Prospera, you can vote, and you can vote for like a city council kind of person, but Prospera Inc. always has more seats than the people can vote for. It's like a 5-4 structure. And so basically they can veto everything. Like there's a nod to democracy, but it's not a democratic structure. It is ruled by a company, which is like, I mean, it's like, ooh, Curtis Yarvin, scary. But in a way, this douchebag is just having the same idea that every douchebag has, was like, what if the government, but run like a business? That's just every stupid guy's idea for all time, like since the beginning of the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. So you mentioned Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
That might be a good segue to chatting about Sam Altman.
Oh yeah, no, we do want to chat about Sam Altman, who is the main subject of our show today. But yeah, before we get into Sam Altman, I did just want to take a brief moment to thank our Patreon supporters, who are the people that make this show possible. And I hope that you consider becoming one of them so that we can keep going. This is a labor of love. We're not going to get on the AZ16 podcast network. I think now that I've insulted Ezra Klein a lot, I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to have a lib media career. Andrew Tenenbaum, Andrew Kutakros, Andrew Jensen. Whoa, fucking thank you, Andrews. Amazing. Daniel DeFries, Shaban Shea, Alexander Poilisher, Joseph Bania, Stuart Slater, Vivek Danzikar, KMF, Noah, Chachi Uday, Joseph Stevenson, Kev Bednars, Eddie Nico, Brianna Chang, AJ, Maserna, Matt, John Johnson, Remelt Ellen, Blaine, Snuffleupagus, Vagard, Kayla, Molly, Casey Lau, Richard Horseman, Jacob Kukola, Phil Giles, and League, Simon, Megan Brokenberg, Christopher Graybill, Deirdre O, Mark Gordon, Juan Martinez, Dan Smith, Naomi Winter Vincent, Adam, Michelle, Jason Morgado, Whateves, Carrie Lawrence, and Derek Lipkin. You made the show happen. Please become a Patreon subscriber if you like us so that we can keep doing this and put out even more episodes, which we'll definitely do when we don't have when I don't have to edit them. We'll be doing episodes all the time, baby. You guys are so awesome. We really appreciate you. And we'll be right back with Sam Altman. Thank you. Okay. All right. So, Sam Altman, what do we know about this creepy motherfucker?
There was an article just published. I think it's the article was in the Wall Street Journal, as I recall, and I think it was an adaptation of at least part of a chapter from a forthcoming book, which is a biography of Sam Altman. And this article starts off with recounting a dinner conversation that Sam Altman had with Peter Thiel. Because Peter Thiel has been a long-time backer of Sam Altman, kind of a mentor to him. Peter Thiel, provided some of the funding that enabled OpenAI to get started. And so basically, during this conversation, according to the book, Peter Thiel was warning Sam Altman about the AI doomers who might be working at OpenAI, saying, you just got to be careful. These are people who basically want to build artificial general intelligence or AGI as soon as possible, but are concerned that if we don't build AGI in the exact right way, then the default outcome is that everyone on Earth will perish. And so this conversation apparently happened right before Sam Altman was fired. So he was fired by the board in, what was it, 2023? I think so.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So he was fired by the board in 2023. Three of the individuals who were instrumental in that firing are sort of subscribed to this AI doomer view, which is not anti-AGI. It's just anti-AGI in the near future. And
Yeah,
yeah.
I have watched some AI doom videos recently, just because I want to try to understand what their perspective, especially as I've been trying to figure out what the fuck is up with these EA weirdos. And it's, a lot of them are just that guy, Yudkowsky. Am I saying his name right? Yeah,
Yep.
A lot of them are just that guy, Eliezer Yudkowsky, talking about how AI is going to come alive and kill us in ways that we are too dumb to think about because it's going to be 10 times smarter than us. And
10, like a million times smarter.
yeah, I mean, okay, that it's just going to be, smarter than the collective intelligence of all humanity, and that it's basically like inviting an alien invasion in. And
Yeah.
I was like, shit, I think that this is kind of probably just hype and a little sci-fi. What if this guy is right? And then I went and looked up something on ChatGPT, and it told me that I was looking up the tariffs, and it told me that Donald Trump had not taken office yet. And so I was like, I don't actually think that this AGI super intelligence is around the corner in the way that these people seem to believe it is.
You also sent me a screenshot of ChatGPT response to your question, which was something like, what is the TESCREAL bundle of ideologies, right?
Yeah.
So TESCREAL is a term that I coined with Dr. Timnit Gebru, who's quite a well-known computer scientist, basically to describe a cluster of ideologies that have become hugely influential within Silicon Valley and promote this kind of techno-utopian vision. We're creating AGI as an integral part of realizing this utopian world that they anticipate. So ChatGPT's response was, do you want to say?
Yeah, so it said TESCREAL is short for Tesla realism.
Tesla realism.
No, actually, okay, let me just take a second to just look it up now and see if it'll do the same thing, because it was so funny. I would like to just read you. Hopefully we can just get
Yeah, so just to be clear, that's not even remotely accurate. I don't even know what Tesla realism could possibly mean.
Now it knows what TESCREAL is. Now it has figured it out, and this is like 2 weeks later. But yeah, no, basically a couple weeks ago, recently, it told me that it was Tesla realism, and that Tesla was, Elon Musk's company, and it was like about people. I think it said something about how people were optimistic about green technology and stuff. Like, it just made up some bullshit that like truly has nothing to do with anything. And then I even typed your name to see if it would give me a better response. I didn't know who you were, but it didn't connect it to this this academic concept. But it's
Interesting.
yeah, it's very strange. It's just so Sam Altman, is he like involved in this? Is he a TESCREAL person?
Yes, very much so.
I could tell that you can't wait to tell me about that. It's been living inside you.
Yeah, there was a New York Times profile on Sam Altman published a few years ago that explicitly described him as being a product of online communities, specifically those going by the name of effective altruism and rationalism. So rationalism is the movement. It's this community that was sort of founded by Eliezer Yudkowsky. And EA is sort of the sibling of rationalism. In fact, they emerged right around the same time, 2009. So Altman has not just been, to some extent, a product of the rationalist community that Yudkowsky founded, but also knows Yudkowsky in person. So, for example, there's a photo that went around on social media of three people: Sam Altman, Eliezer Yudkowsky, and Grimes. So they're all hanging out together. Altman has explicitly said that Yudkowsky is the reason he got into AI in the first place. And this is a series of tweets that were a bit kind of trolling Yudkowsky by saying Yudkowsky actually might deserve the Nobel Peace Prize at some point in the future because of how much he has contributed to the current race to build artificial general intelligence, AGI. But Yudkowsky is the most influential doomer out there. So Yudkowsky's view really is that we should build AGI as soon as possible, but we're not ready right now. So they distinguish between AI safety research and AI capabilities research. Right? So capabilities research is just trying to build the technology. The safety research is trying to figure out the way to design advanced AI such that it basically does whatever we want it to do. It's a god that obeys our wishes. And so Yudkowsky is pro-AGI. He just is worried that AI safety research is lagging behind AI capabilities research. And if we get to the AGI finish line with that configuration, then the default outcome is, like I said before, it's total annihilation. But if AI safety leads the way when we cross the finish line, then we get utopia. We get everything we want.
Can't even handle how annoying these people are.
Yudkowsky recently said in an interview that if he could sacrifice all of humanity, that was his term, in order to create a population of super intelligent AI gods that would then colonize space, populate the universe, and as he put it, care about each other while having fun, quote, then he would do
fun. It is a good time.
Right.
We will speak with one another in a jovial tone. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of shocking. I mean, he said he would sacrifice all of humanity if he could create this sort of AI utopia world. So really, I don't know. These are ideas that to normal, sane people sound absolutely outlandish and fantastical and bizarre, but they're ideas that are influential in Silicon Valley. I mean, this is Yudkowsky making these claims. Yudkowsky has been rubbing elbows with Sam Altman for a long time. Like I said, I mean, Altman says Yudkowsky's the one who inspired him to pursue AI in the first place. And so Altman is kind of an interesting character because he seems to have started off as a doomer. So he wrote a couple posts, for example, in 2015, which is the year that OpenAI was founded, in which he argued that creating artificial general intelligence would probably lead to superintelligence and that could be extremely dangerous, could result in existential catastrophe. And that same year, actually, he said in an interview with the CEO of Airbnb that, and I'm more or less quoting here, AI will most likely lead to the end of the world, but in the meantime, at least we'll have great machine learning companies. But his views have kind of shifted more recently, as far as I can tell. So this conversation he had with Peter Thiel, where Thiel was warning him about the AI doomers who are all influenced by Yudkowsky and saying, just be careful because they might try to interfere with the AI capabilities research that's being done at OpenAI. And sure enough, shortly after the board, which included members who are AI doomers, again, sort of influenced by Yudkowsky's thinking, they did fire Sam Altman. But since then, I mean, he seems to have become more of an accelerationist, more of an optimist about the risks of artificial general intelligence, namely that the risks are low. And so really we shouldn't be so concerned about AI safety research, and we should focus a bit more on AI capabilities research because on this accelerationist view, the most likely outcome of creating superintelligence is that we will just get utopia, and we probably won't risk being, completely extinguished.
I have a couple things to say about that. One,
I'm sure you do.
It's this whole AI doom thing. It seems like one of the things that strikes me as being fairly obvious is that narrative was very useful to Sam Altman at some point because he was supposed to have this open source AI company, right? And then he's like, but we just can't let other people see this. It's too dangerous. It's going to kill us all. So unfortunately, I have to make all the money myself. I'm a little skeptical. I mean, look, I could be owned so hard on this in the next 15, 20 years, but I am very skeptical that there is going to be something that these people would consider super intelligence, artificial general intelligence, because I just think that there's so many aspects of being a person and of intelligence that we don't even understand yet. I think our physical bodies are perceiving information and our emotions are informing us. And there's just so many aspects of intelligence other than the kind of just information. And these, they're training these LLMs, it's just reading the internet, So it's become better and better at summarizing the internet. Sometimes it gets things hilariously wrong, but that's such a far cry from anything that could resemble consciousness.
As a Tesla realist, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, it just seems like this is, I'm not going to say that they're not doing amazing things to some extent, but it seems like a lot of it is marketing hype. And it seems like in terms of the risks that are actually present, it's less that AI is going to become sentient and talk to its AI friends and concoct a plan to I think Yudkowsky gave an example of it, orders a biovirus from a lab that kills us all, every single person in the world. I think it's much more likely that surveillance will increase to the level that political protests and policing just mean something where we have a lot less power work to change our circumstances. To me, that's like the actual danger of AI, because like now at this point you need like human beings to do a lot of this work. And if it's AI surveilling us or doing a lot of the surveillance, like, and it's better and better, then, you know, the risks are that it's all going to get real creepy. In my opinion, I don't know.
Yeah. So I think this gets at a useful distinction between AI ethics and AI safety.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so AI safety is really focused on these large, highly speculative risks, the sorts of risks that Yudkowsky talks about. AI ethics is more concerned with the sort of kinds of dangers that you were gesturing at just now. So it's more concrete. That it doesn't mean that the risks that AI ethicists focus on aren't long-term. It's just that they're much more concrete.
Yeah.
Right. And so Yudkowsky, for example, he will ultimately fall back on this idea that, as you mentioned before, superintelligence is just going to be so much more clever than we are, that we can't even anticipate how exactly it's going to go about killing everyone. But nonetheless, Yudkowsky, he outlines various extinction scenarios that are just really hard to take seriously. You're right. The one having to do with synthesizing some kind of designer pathogen is one. I mean, he's literally said that maybe there could be this highly contagious but completely asymptomatic virus that goes around. So it spreads around the entire globe, infects 8.2 billion people. And then so it infects the nervous system in particular. And then at some point in the future, the superintelligence plays a certain tone, and that causes the virus to activate in the brain. And suddenly then the superintelligence can control our behavior via this mind control mechanism. He's also said, so here's right. So it is kind of inherently pretty funny. And another scenario is, well, maybe the superintelligence figures out a way of designing a kind of self-replicating life form that does not exist on Earth, but is sort of hypothetically possible, which he refers to as diamondoid bacteria. So we don't need to go into the details about, like, it's basically this very, very robust type of life form that then the superintelligence releases into the atmosphere. It self-replicates until it blots out the sun, causing photosynthesis to become impossible. Global agriculture collapses and so on. So this is like, I don't know, maybe the superintelligence could use nanotechnology to create these diamondoid bacteria that self-replicate atmospherically, but who knows? And from my perspective, and this sort of like brings us out of the realm of AI safety and more into the domain of AI ethics. I think that there are like way more plausible ways that advanced AI systems, bring about the collapse of civilization. So like an obvious scenario is just that it enables the generation and propagation of disinformation about climate change.
Yeah.
I mean, climate change is going to be absolutely catastrophic. It's not clear to me that our civilization is going to be able to survive 2, 3, 4 degrees of warming in the next several decades. So if you have AI systems that can do basically what ChatGPT does, a lot of the even more advanced systems that we have, which is just to make up propaganda, to spread conspiracy theories and so on, then you can end up in a situation where, maybe civilization does actually start to implode as a result of AI. So like one hypothesis that you might defend is that it could be the case that superintelligence is not possible to build for sort of like philosophical reasons. Maybe it's just not possible to create an information processing system that does exceed the capabilities of all of humanity put together. But another possibility, much more concrete possibility, is that maybe these systems that are necessary on our way to superintelligence will have such devastating consequences in the world that civilization can't remain intact to the point at which we might build superintelligence.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense? Maybe these stepping stones are so
sense.
dangerous.
I mean, this is kind of what we were talking about the other week with like, Ezra Klein's techno-optimistic vision. I've taken to calling Ezra Klein Lib Andreessen. To me, that's like, so Lib Andreessen's techno-optimistic vision, what he says is like, I think this is almost a direct quote from AI was, created with all of human knowledge, so the profits are shared by all of humanity. You fucking idiot. I mean, like, not unless there's a fucking proletarian revolution where people like literally throw all your friends in jail, everybody like holds them there. I mean, like that is what it would take for the profits to actually be redistributed. It's like for literally everyone Ezra Klein knows in this tech world to be in prison. I'm not advocating for that, but I'm saying that is that is what it would take. Like if you look at human history, I do think that AI will be used to take a lot of jobs, but not even in the way that necessarily like the AI is doing the job. I think there'll be a lot of circumstances where they'll say, oh, AI is going to do this, and then it'll just be workers being expected to do twice as much work. You know, we're like, yeah, sure, they can like generate, you know, bulleted lists in ChatGPT or something like that, but it's still a human. Just wanted to talk about like a couple other things in Sam's bio. He went to Stanford, which is where Peter Thiel went, and I feel like Stanford is like a real center of this effective altruism nonsense. There's this Vox writer, Kelsey Piper, that I've been like getting really annoyed with because she just keeps posting about how much she loves sweatshops, and I'm like, this makes you sound like a fucking sociopath. Like, I know in your theory this is amazing for the economic development of other countries and is therefore a beneficial and moral thing that you're doing. But you have to realize that to the rest of us, child slaves does not sound like a beneficial or nice thing.
You know, she was at Yudkowsky's wedding.
Yeah.
So all of
believe
these
it.
people like know each other.
Yeah.
They're all basically in the same social circle.
Yeah, no, and like the Vox crew, like the extended Vox universe, Iglesias, Klein, Kelsey Piper, Dylan Matthews, they seem like they're kind of on the lib side of it, but I've noticed that they all seem to be hanging out with the people who are on even the hard right of it, like people who are advocating for straight up fascist policy, if you dig a little deeper on it. I mean, it's so Stanford, that's annoying.
Stanford also has a long history with the U.S., the Anglo-American eugenics movement.
Yes, and Malcolm Harris
Yeah.
wrote a great book about that.
Yep.
It is called
Palo Alto.
Palo Alto. Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah.
I had him on my old podcast, and there's still
fantastic.
an episode, but we got to get him on this show. So he's from Chicago. He founded a social networking app at 19, which has to be you have to be pretty annoying to do that, I think. Got his money from Y Combinator and sold it for millions. And then he became, in 2011, a part-time partner for Y Combinator and eventually was named president, taking over from Paul Graham. Altman is responsible for some investing and mentoring in Airbnb, Stripe, Reddit, Coinbase, and then stepped down from Y Combinator to focus on OpenAI in 2019. And so we've talked about OpenAI. Do you know anything about this weird cryptocurrency Worldcoin eye scanning shit that he has going on?
I have heard a bit about it. But before we talk about that, you mentioned Paul Graham.
Yeah.
There's this quote that, this line from Paul Graham that has stood out in my head ever since I came across it a little while ago. I think Paul Graham was on Twitter talking about Sam Altman, and he said, and I quote, "Sam is extremely good at becoming powerful."
Yeah.
So if there's like one like superpower, if Altman is a genius at anything, it seems to be like basically manipulating people, acting the way sociopaths act to climb the hierarchy of the socioeconomic system in our capitalist society. Like he seems to be just really good at that. And I don't know, so this Coinbase situation seems, I don't know, it seems really, really weird as far as I understand. I mean, people in the global south in particular are getting paid in crypto to have certain biometric data recorded. They look into this orb, and as I recall, the orb then scans their retina.
Yeah, it scans people's eyeballs. Basically, it's a cryptocurrency, and there's Sam Altman's cryptocurrency, and there's these shiny metallic orbs, and it's like an AI with crypto project where it uses the orbs to scan people's eyes in exchange for a digital ID and some cryptocurrency. So basically, it's his plan to discern like who is human online ultimately.
Yes.
It's very, I don't know.
So maybe in the future we'd all have this orb.
Yes, exactly.
And if you want to like access your bank account on your phone or on your computer, you stare into the orb and it determines that you are indeed human and so can proceed.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't seem like terribly different than like Face ID, which we already have, but it is, I guess the retinas is a little even stranger, right? So I think the idea is that if the this method of ID catches on and you use them to sign into all of your devices. And Altman says the difference is that it's just more secure and that it's completely unlinked to email, name, photograph. Like it's just, I guess it's just your eyeball. And so you have like there's like millions of people, at least 2 million, that have registered for like world IDs, but a lot of people are doing it for like money. So basically to get like the goal of this whole thing is the eyeball shit. Let's just call it that. I'm not an engineer, you can tell. So the main goal is this eyeball shit. But in order to get people to do it, they created a crypto token, and they have offered money to anyone who will scan their eyes into an orb. And the orb is also a marketing ploy for VC funding.
Yeah, so I think one of the critiques of this project is the obvious one, that it's a bit predatory.
Yeah, of
You know,
course.
like they go into like poor countries, they offer people money in exchange for like really, it's not just taking a picture of your face, which is something that we have today.
Yeah.
But it's even more like intimate than
Yeah.
that, actually scanning your eyeball, because your retina and, all the vasculature in your eye, I mean, that's like a fingerprint. And so, yeah, I don't know. It just seems a bit predatory. I think that's one of many problems I have with it. Also, just this idea that it's completely secure. I have not looked into that in detail, but my immediate worry would be that it could be hacked.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like, I think that is a possibility, and I mean, it's like also, we just saw like 23andMe go bankrupt, and so now like all of that data about people's DNA is going to be sold, and I think that so basically like what Sam Altman says he's doing with this, which I'm somewhat skeptical of, but also kind of jives with his weirdo effective altruism beliefs, is so. Altman says he is a proponent of UBI. He talks about it on, interviews and stuff. He's like, we're going to need UBI when, we are all replaced by this, super intelligence that I'm building.
What he refers to as the magic intelligence in the sky.
God,
I know.
I'm sorry. I don't know. Like a big thing that I've been thinking of since we did this podcast is if it counts as advocating for violence, if I just advocate for imprisoning people. I'm like, can I get in trouble for that? Can I get in trouble for saying throw this man in jail? I don't know.
Well, there's this funny line, which I think I've mentioned on previous podcast episode from Sam Altman, in which he's talking about developing advanced AI. And he says, I quote, "Because if I weren't in on this, I'd be like, why do these fuckers get to decide what happens to me?" And so it's just in terms of like, I don't know, they're tech dictators to some extent. I mean, they're unilaterally, without democratic consent, like developing these technologies and then imposing this on everyone else. And so I don't know. I mean, as a chuckle, like the idea of, let's get Altman like contained.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
And he says that the reason that he's doing this thing is so that we'll have a way of distributing UBI through people, like, having this super secure ID system. This is
the orb.
Yeah, this is the orb. This is how the wealth from AI will eventually be redistributed. And, Andreessen is a backer of Worldcoin, as you could probably guess. But yeah, I mean, I think to the like why these fuckers get to decide what happens to us. I mean, that is, I think, like we're seeing that emerge as like an ongoing theme on this podcast, and I think it's important to remember that however narcissistically these people see themselves, they don't 100% get to decide what happens to us. Like a lot of their things haven't worked out. For example, looking like Prospera might get kicked out of Honduras. I don't think that Greenland is going to like let them buy this shit. Like they have not, like this weird little network state project that they tried to do in Solano County, California, where they were going to build a tech utopia. They just didn't even fucking consider that the farmers were not going to vote to change the zoning, and they can't get around it. They're like, oh, maybe we could work with the city to make a shipbuilding hub or something like that. But they bought all this real estate to build a new city, and they can't. Maybe eventually, I don't know, but it's just like they're not they're high enough on their own supply that I think that they're actually, even though they have a lot of power, they're overestimating it greatly.
Yeah. And as you know, they were gung-ho about seasteading for a while. And that has, as far as I could tell, that's lost just about all of the momentum that it once had. So there are these dreams that have turned out to be pipe dreams.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like it's, checking or crossing one out on the list at a time. Right?
I think that there's like a very illustrative example in there of like the seasteading. So I've talked about how I went to the first ephemeral, and a thing that it didn't fully like ruin that party, but it kind of got in the way of that party was that it was very windy, and it was interesting that they had not like considered that like wind was going to be a thing, that they were planning on moving their entire lives to the literal sea and haven't considered that's like it has to be sailing 101. That wind, I think, is, I'm pretty sure, like one of the main topics if you're a boat guy, if not like the main topic. And they just like they imagine themselves to be so immune and just like, yeah, I'm an engineer, I thought of this, and it's like
there was one summer when I was quite young that I taught sailing in the Chesapeake Bay. I grew up, my grandparents were just by the Chesapeake Bay. And so I learned how to sail when I was pretty young. So all of this is just to confirm, the reason I mention this is that yes, wind is very important.
See, we're here to bring the real stuff. All right. Well, it's probably time to wrap up. So I just wanted to take one more moment to thank our Patreon supporters. Have a good week. Try not to let the sociopaths get you down. Please remember that they are also very dumb in addition to being very rich. So yeah, we are the super intelligence. Yeah.
Yes. Or maybe they're just the sub-intelligence.
Yeah. I don't know.
Infra-intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, they're like sci-fi little boys. Like they're just like everything that they are doing makes sense with like a bunch of action figures. It's just that they think that we are the action figures, which is a huge problem, and why we need to throw them in jail. All right. Thank you so much for listening to the show.
Thanks.
We'll be back. Dystopia Now is a co-production of Emil Torres and Kate Willett. Our theme song is Hunger Strike by Emil Torres. We have no outside funding or advertising, so if you can become a contributor on Patreon, we deeply appreciate your help keeping the show going. We are a brand new podcast, so please rate and review us on your podcast platform of choice, and we'd love your help getting the word out. Thank you so much.